We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Give some people some time to jump in here. It's going to be a fun day. Almost at the end of the week. Lindsay, how you feeling?
Doing great. I'm excited for this.
It's going to be
It's gonna be
fun.
great.
Got my cool lighting going on back here.
Looks awesome.
One of the lights that I had, the battery kept dying, and I found out that I had to leave it plugged in.
Oh, really?
I was doing calls, and then like the light would go out. So
Oh,
I
weird.
don't think that's going to happen today, but if it does, that's okay.
Well, it looks great right now.
Welcome. Welcome to our attendees that are jumping in. We don't know each other yet, but I already feel like we're best friends. So glad that y'all have made it. We'll give some people a little bit more time to jump in here. Depending on where you're at, I mean, it's lunchtime. Hopefully you've got your food. Lindsay, I don't know about you. Did you bring any food?
Not yet. I'm in Central, so it's only 12. We've got some
Yep.
time.
Yep. 12 here too. I will not be eating while I do the webinar. That's good news for you, for everybody that's attending here.
Great.
See some people jumping in. I'll give a couple minutes. It's only 12. We'll give 5 or 6 minutes.
Great.
This is going to be great. For those of you that are jumping in, you're going to get a recording. No need to take notes. If you're like me, you'd like to have a pencil or a pen and some paper to remember it. For right now, absolutely feel free. But if you're just the person that, you want the follow-up notes later on, we're going to make sure that everybody that's registered gets the notes or gets the whole recording from this as well. So that's going to be great. So sit back, relax, eat your lunch. And then, yeah, we're going to have a good time.
Great. More people are rolling in. This is perfect.
We'll try to kick off. Give it 12:05, maybe a little earlier. So I'm really excited. This. Alrighty. Oh, it stopped my music. Well, that's all right. Let me see if I can get the music back on, y'all.
The slides look great, though. We can see those.
Awesome. Awesome. So excited. I cannot see who all is in here, how many people are in here so far, but Lindsay, why don't you just tell me when you feel like it's a good time for us to get rolling, and I'll just kind of let you kick it off.
Sounds great. Yeah, we'll wait
Then we're
one
gonna
more.
have some fun.
We'll wait one more minute for a few more people to roll in, and then we'll be good to go.
Sweet. Those of you that are just now jumping in, I had some really cool music. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the band The Midnight. If you're not, I highly suggest that you check them out. They've got some kind of late 80s, early 90s vibe to their music. And what I like to do when I work is turn on the instrumental versions of their songs, because I don't like a lot of lyrics while I'm working, especially if I'm doing like focused work. But if you like that kind of vibe, check out The Midnight. Highly recommend.
Amazing. Well, we have a number of people, so why don't we kick this off? Guys, welcome to the Build a Brand That Puts the Big Four to Shame webinar. My name's Lindsay. I'm a project manager here at Forrest. I'm joined by Brandon Triola, our co-founder and chief creative officer. He's going to dive into all things brand, and you're going to walk away with some great insights of how you can apply this practically. So quick note, you're going to get the recording at the end of this call. So take notes, but you will get this email to you afterwards. Also, at the end of the call, we will do a Q&A. We'll get to as many as we can. So feel free to ask questions as we're going through the webinar. Put them in the chat. I'll take note of them. We'll get to as many as we can. But let's dive in.
Guys, ladies, gentlemen, marketing people, branding people. See, we have a lot of people that registered for this. Your roles span across all kinds of different functions. So thankful for you being here. Look, before we jump in, I want to do something kind of fun here. I have a thank you for everybody. I know there's a lot to work on, right? Everybody has goals. You guys have KPIs, and I don't know about you. I get tired of the virtual world that we're in sometimes. Tired of just downloadables. I want something that I can wear, that I can touch. If you stay on till the end of this webinar, you are going to get a chance to get a free certified human t-shirt. I'll talk about what that is as we get to the end. So stay on. If you don't stay on, you won't get a chance to get a free t-shirt, but I'm still not going to be mad at you. I understand you have a lot to get to. This is just our way of saying thank you for giving a little bit of time to learn and just put some care into your brand and your business today. So stay on. You'll get a chance to get a free t-shirt in your preferred size. So that's a super fun thing that we have going on. Now, me, guys, hi, I'm Brandon. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Forrest, and we are a full service growth agency for B2B tech businesses. We believe that technology and people should work together to elevate humanity, and human-centered branded marketing is like our secret sauce for how we help these kinds of businesses achieve breakthrough growth. We're all about humanity. You'll see that throughout this deck. If you've been to our website, you'll see that. And we just love people at the end of the day. And I particularly am so passionate about the topic of branding that I always tell people my parents named me after it. It's obviously not really the case, but you guys get what I'm saying. When it comes to this whole world of branding, churches, nonprofits, small businesses, coffee shops, global tech firms, insurance agencies, startups, iOS apps, IT consultancies. I've been a direct or indirect part of building brand identities and brand strategies for all of those and then some. So I've seen a lot of things. I've seen a lot of brands, businesses get bought. I've seen a lot run out of money. I've seen some go viral, seen some make millions, seen some flop. I've seen all kinds of things, all kinds of drama, all kinds of successes too. And I've stayed curious about this idea of brand and brand strategy and what it is. And we're going to talk about this today because I think this is really important. So, first of all, look at these. These are some of the largest tech brands and consultancies on the planet. Sadly, a lot of smaller firms think that brand investments are a waste of time. Money needs to go towards sales. We got pipeline. We got revenue investments only that we need to make, right? What if I were to tell you guys that the right brand investment could have an impact on revenue, not just now, but long-term as well? And I understand that a lot of your businesses, you need quick and you need short wins. But I also understand that you can't just get short wins now and then a year from now have to start all over again. I believe that if we started seeing our brand and our brand strategy like these firms on the screen saw theirs, I think we'd stop losing deals to some of these companies, specifically the big four. And I actually think that our companies would start putting them on notice, which is what we all want to do, right? Now, this isn't a dig at any of these companies. We know people that work at these brands, but they're really big and they win all the really big deals and all the really big RFPs. And they have all the funds and the investment to be able to do cool and fun things. And sometimes you just feel like you can't measure up. Well, in this webinar, I'm going to try to prove to you guys that starting with your brand is the way that you can measure up. First, maybe you've asked questions like this. Should we redo our website? Do we need a new logo? Did you guys see what blank competitor did? Or maybe you don't know what your unique story is. It's crowded in tech right now, especially in tech consulting too. If you go a layer deeper into that, it is crowded. There are a lot of firms doing similar things, selling similar services, hiring similar people. This is hard. Or maybe you're struggling to win deals against some of these firms in the big four, and maybe you just have no idea how to fix it. These problems are complex and they're layered, and I want you guys to know that I understand that we see you, that it's not just so easy. Brandon, it's not as easy as just we need a better logo. That's not what this webinar is about today. Today is a little bit different. Today we're going to do some learning and we're going to have some fun, but we're going to talk about a few things first. Why is your brand the ultimate vehicle to connect with your buyers on a human level? You guys all know this. You've probably all said it or had it said to you. Businesses don't buy from businesses. People buy from people. That's like the overarching truth that frames all of this up. At the end of the day, yeah, we're all B2B that are on this call, but it's a person with feelings, with emotions, with stuff happening in their life, with schedules and taking kids to soccer practice. It's moms, it's dads on the other side of things. And the brand is the vehicle. That's where the human connection can take place. We're going to learn how to identify the signs and symptoms of a leaky brand. What is that? Don't worry, I'll get into it. We're going to talk about the real cost of not having an intentional brand strategy for your tech brand, because there is a real cost. And we're going to talk about the two must-haves in every technology firm's brand strategy playbook. If you already have one of these, great. You're crushing it. If you don't have this or you're not sure what this is, please stick around. I'm going to show you what it is and how you can get started doing this right away for your business. So let's go. Okay, branding 101. We all have an idea in our brain of what it is. We're going to talk about what it is, what it isn't, and why it even matters. But really, when it comes down to it, I want to uncover why our brand is the ultimate vehicle to connect with your buyers on a human level. Now, there's a guy named Marty Neumeyer. He wrote a book called The Brand Gap. If you're fascinated like I am about this idea of brand, this is great homework. But he said this: a brand is a result. It's a customer's gut feeling about a product, service, or a company. It's not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. You can't always build your brand in the boardroom asking the internal team, what should we say about ourselves? And if you are a B2B business of any kind, you've run into this problem. And I call it the water bottle effect. The water can't see the label from inside the bottle sometimes. And this is where we go wrong. A lot of times, not every time. Your brand is what they say it is. Well, the 9-figure and 10-figure brands that are out there, they have a strategy for controlling this perception and controlling this gut reaction. So before we get into that, I want to talk about what isn't a brand. Sadly, like I said, a lot of B2B and B2C businesses don't really know the answer to this question. So here's a list of things that is not a brand, contrary to popular opinion. A logo is not a brand. Visual identities are not a brand, although they can look really cool and they can help your brand. Colors, part of the visual identity. Fonts, part of that. Websites are not a brand. Marketing campaigns are not a brand. Gosh, I love marketing. We got to all work together. Sales, marketing. Marketing is so vital. It's so important. But at the end of the day, marketing is just one of the vehicles that delivers the brand and the human connection and that gut reaction. But a marketing campaign and marketing is not a brand. And swag. We're going to give away t-shirts at the end of this. Like, I love swag. We have a team at Forrest that just builds and creates this stuff. Like, we love it, but it's still, as awesome as it is, these are deliverables. And branding is deeper than deliverables. This is the really important thing for us to know and learn if we're going to measure up and we're going to start to compete with some of these larger firms. Branding is deeper than deliverables. And these things, while as awesome as they are, they're just not a brand. So what is it? Okay, I have this friend. Her name's Melinda. She's awesome. Melinda, if you're watching, thank you. I'm borrowing this from you. She has this explanation, and it's one of the best that I've heard. And she teaches people how to become brand strategists for a living. Like, that's her job. And she says this, that brand strategy, it's like matchmaking, okay? It's like matchmaking for businesses. Brand strategy makes the brand attractive to the ideal customer in a way that makes them love it. It's a really easy way to think about it. It's a strategy for how we're going to make ourselves, our business, attractive to our ideal customer. So if we're going to talk about matchmaking, why do people love tech brands like this? Now, some of these are new. Obviously, ClickUp's been new on the scene over these last couple of years. We love ClickUp at Forrest. They're taking over the productivity space. But there's a lot of reasons why people swipe right on these brands. They got great service. They have great products. They hire great people, top talent. You can make a long list. But if you boil it all down, one of the main reasons why we love these 9 and 10-figure tech brands is because of a really long word that's hard to spell. It's actually hard to say, but I'm going to teach you the word right now. Anthropomorphism. Brands are anthropomorphic, and that is the attribution of human characteristics to something that's basically not human. Brands are anthropomorphic. It's a phenomenon that takes place with a brand, and I'll prove it to you. Have you ever been really angry at a brand? Just like so mad. I'll give you an example because we all have. You might not be able to think of one off the top of your head. I was on the phone with Verizon for 2 hours. Now, I'm not a hater of Verizon. They've been great to our business, great to me. But in this particular setting, I talked to these guys for like 2 hours. And by the end of the call, not only were they not able to help me fix my thing that was going on with my phone, the call got dropped. I had to start the whole thing over again. And I found myself like having one of those moments where like I was mad at them. And I realized, oh, I'm mad at a brand right now. I'm mad at a thing that, and the people that I talked to were great. The customer service reps were nice. They weren't rude, but we have these emotional things that happen because brands are anthropomorphic. On the reverse, if you're just fallen in love with a brand, I'll give you another example. I love Nike. Anybody that knows me, anybody that's close with me, ask my wife. I do not own a pair of Adidas. You will not find any Reeboks in my house. I love this brand. I would give them all my money tomorrow because, not because they make great shoes. They don't even make the best shoes. But Nike has sold me something that's deeper than just gear. They've sold me an aspiration. They've sold me an emotion. They've actually made me believe at 36 years old with one fully rebuilt knee and a couple other sports injuries that I can still be great. And if you've never seen this ad, I would suggest after this, go to YouTube, type in Nike, find your greatness ad, and watch this. And a little tear will well up in your eye because it's one of the most beautiful, simple, thoughtful ads ever. This is what happens. This is the kind of thing that makes us love brands. Now let's look at some of these, right? We've got Nike on here. There's Southwest. There's Patagonia is another one. I've also got some of the big 9 and 10 figure tech brands that are on there. But great brands are superb at making every interaction with them feel unique and human-like. They feel like they understand you. They've learned about you. They make you want to belong to them. We become fans of these things. And they really aren't as much concerned with getting you to buy something as they are with just cultivating this trust between us and them. They know the buying is going to happen on its own, right? This is why your brand is the ultimate vehicle for connecting with your buyers on a human level. It's because at its nature, it's anthropomorphic. Okay, so Brandon, why are 9 and 10 figure tech brands so good at this human connection thing? Why do they seem to get this anthropomorphic thing right? Because it is true, it is real. Sociologists and marketing people and brand people have studied this for hundreds of years now. Brands are anthropomorphic. But why are these giant companies a little bit better at it? Again, just like anthropomorphic was a keyword, there's one word, one reason. I'm going to teach you this word. I want you to take this word, just clutch it, clutch onto it, and take it away today. Take it throughout the rest of your day. Intentionality. The brands who do this well do it on purpose. They're just intentional about it. Have you ever seen somebody that just looks really fit? They don't have an ounce of fat on them and they're just chiseled. They, especially if they're in their 30s or over, they didn't wake up that way. They did it intentionally. They created a plan for that to become what their body looks like. And the key to building a human-centered brand that people love, even as a B2B tech brand, is to just do it intentionally. So if people don't love, remember, feel connected to our brand, I have to ask, we have to ask, have I built an intentional strategy to ensure that they do? Chances are you might have not. And I'm going to show you guys how. Okay, example time. I love examples. Examples are like my favorite. There's so many. This was hard because I had a limited window of time. I wanted to give you guys some time for questions at the end. There's so many examples. I always try to share these. If you guys aren't following me on LinkedIn, I would kindly invite you to do so because if you want more examples like this, I try to find some every week. I try to put them in the articles that I'm writing. I try to put them in the posts. But sometimes examples are great because they take what these big companies are doing and they make it sort of plain for us to understand so that we can then take some of these ideas for our brand, for our tech firm that might not be the size of, you guys know what logo this is, Salesforce, for example. And we go, oh yeah, this is what they did. I can take the principle and I can apply this to our firm in a way that I know I'm going to see a result. I'm going to see impact. I'm going to see ROI. So examples are really powerful. So here's a couple brand lessons from one of the most beloved and intentional tech brands on the planet. Okay. this is fascinating to me in B2B tech. When I stumbled across this a couple years ago, I had to sort of make a case study on this because it proves a really powerful point about human connection and branding, especially for tech. You can make the case that Salesforce choosing to humanize its brand through these fun-loving characters was a marketing play. That's just marketing. That's just the people in marketing trying to just do something that gets attention. But it's not. If you dig a little deeper, and I'm going to say this a lot, if you look under the hood, this is a strategic brand decision based on what they know about their audience. They know that to their audience, technology is confusing, technology is daunting, that technology is mostly uninspiring. It's not relatable. You all know this. One of the hardest things about the businesses that you have is the confusing and complex things that you have to articulate. And when you confuse people over and over again, you lose their attention. Well, Salesforce just decided to figure out, how can we get some of that attention back? How can we lower some of that confusion? And what Salesforce has done is they've decided to strategically humanize and simplify the way their technology is perceived by partners, by users, and by everybody else. This is intentional branding. This is Salesforce choosing intentionally how to become attractive to their audience. Look at this thing. Who doesn't want to hug their screen? It's just unbelievably cute. Like if my kids saw this, they'd be like, if Salesforce had a storefront, and they had these guys standing outside, my kids would be like, Dad, pull over. We got to go in. It's just so brilliant, but it's not just a marketing play. It's intentional. So what's the result of them doing this over time? So I don't know if you know this about Salesforce. Maybe we have some Salesforce partners or something on this call. If so, you know this, but Salesforce as a B2B tech, as a giant B2B tech company, they have a cult-like following. They literally just sell sales software, but they have been intentional on how to help guide and rally people around their brand by doing stuff like this. So now people want to belong to Salesforce so bad. There's like this legit underground market for stickers. So if you go to their events, we have Salesforce clients that tell us this. If you go to their events, there's people trading and buying and trading stickers and putting them on their stuff. It's just become this thing with these cute little characters. They trade them, they collect them, they decorate their laptops, they wear them like badges of honor. Salesforce is to tech like Jeep is to automobiles. Anybody have a Jeep? You ever see a Jeep? They all have those little rubber ducks. It's like a thing. Well, that's the kind of impact and brand impact that Salesforce has created, not by just having a ton of budget. You could make the case, well, they just have the revenue to support this kind of strategic initiative. They just got to know their audience really well and said, here's a thing that we're going to do to make ourselves attractive, because branding is making your business attractive, right? To the right buyer. They just decided to do this intentionally. And now look, does anybody know the name of this character? I would love to know. Put it in the chat if you think you know. Lindsay, if anybody thinks they know, uh, and they put the answer in, I would love to hear you read it out. I'll give a minute or two. Now, this is not Salesforce. This is another large technology company, B2B technology company, that has now started showing up with their own mascot. Do we have any guessers for the name?
It looks like the chat isn't working. So guys, if you just put it in the Q&A, I'll make it go through and
Put it in
everyone.
the Q&A. Yes. Or I'll just tell you the answer. Maybe somebody knows. If you know the answer, tell us, hey, I already knew that, and we'll give you a shout out. But this is Sweet Stanley. This is NetSuite's very own little guy. Even NetSuite is going, yeah, Salesforce is onto something. And when you have brands that do stuff like this, that make such a big impact, people start copying, right? Now, I'm not indicting NetSuite and saying that they copy. I'm just saying understanding your audience at a human level and how you're going to make yourself attractive to them is a really strategic thing that these big brands understand. And you don't need a big brand budget to be strategic. You just need a little bit of intentionality. And Salesforce and NetSuite, if you look at what they do, you look at their marketing is a result of their brand strategy. When you look at what they're doing in their marketing, it all comes from this place of them understanding their audience and how they're going to be attractive to them. Salesforce and NetSuite are intentional. So if you're going to show up and be experienced, it's like a 9-figure brand or a 10-figure brand, you've got to choose to do so intentionally, because it's not going to happen by accident. It's not going to happen by going, What are we going to put on social this week? We got to put something out there. It's not ever going to just happen by accident. So let's go a little deeper on this. Have you guys ever heard of this before? This is called goodwill value. And no, I'm not talking about thrift stores, although who loves a good thrift every now and then? I'm not going to lie. It's one of my favorite things to do. Love to go thrifting. I'm not talking about Goodwill, the brand. So goodwill value refers to the value a company gets from its brand, its customer base, its reputation, and it's all associated with its intellectual property, right? It's basically a long-term asset that generates value for a company over a number of years. So those of you that are on this call, if your business is thinking about selling or getting acquired at some point, this is really, really important for you to understand as a B2B business. And I didn't even know this until a couple years ago, but this is important. So if your goodwill value is high, it means higher valuations, higher sales prices for when you sell your business. It make any of those that hold equity in the company, right, that are going to feel the upside of that sale really, really happy. And your goodwill value as a B2B business is really important because if you're ever going to get acquired and sell your business, it's like one of the things that the financial people actually look at. And your goodwill value, this is where it gets interesting, is calculated based on how strong and intentional your reputation slash brand is. So what I want to do is I want to show you guys a seemingly boring, maybe unheard of B2B brand that in their little market they were in got really intentional with their reputation, another way to say your brand, and the impact that it had. So I'll just do this really quick. You can make the case that intentional branding, you could swap that word out for goodwill value. It enhances brand value, builds customer loyalty, it attracts investors, it helps mitigate risks. So let's look at a story. So a few years back, a business made a bid or made an offer to this company, Gardner Denver, for $3.74 billion. And Gardner Denver, if you don't know anything about them, they are the go-to brand for like pumps and compressors and fuel systems, loading arms. I don't even know what some of that stuff means. They're like the BMW or Mercedes of pumps, basically. Now, this company has such a great brand reputation in the market that it's in that the annual report that they published calculated that 43% of its business value was goodwill and other intangible assets. See, most people think that branding is just for B2C or e-commerce brands, and this is a dangerous and a costly way to think. And this seemingly boring B2B business was intentional with their brand, and that contributed to 43% of its $3.74 billion valuation. This is not just fluff. This actually makes a business impact, but it's hard because nobody ever talks about this side of it because it's mostly thought of as a creative function and not a strategic business function. And let's just say this part again. 9 and 10 figure B2B brands are intentional. And if you want the same kinds of results that Salesforce or even Gardner Denver is getting, you need to choose to be intentional with your brand in 2024. It's really, really important. Again, this word is highlighted for a reason. Intentional, intentional, intentional. So the leaks. I'll tell a little story to make this real. If you've ever been a new homeowner, it can be really exciting, but it can also be really terrifying when you look up and there's water coming out of the ceiling. Now, how many of you know that if this happens to you or this has happened to you, you don't just have a water problem. You probably have a pipe problem. It could be bigger than that. It could be something else. Like something's going on in there. Maybe something fell, a beam came loose, crashed onto the pipe. Now you got to repair the pipe. Now you got to fix it. Who knows what it could be? This has happened to me and it's really, really scary. Well, the key is in our businesses, we have these leaks that show up. And sometimes we think they're operational. Sometimes we think they're personnel leaks. But after doing this for 15 years, what I've identified is, especially for tech companies, there are business problems that are oftentimes when we peel back the drywall and look up into the ceiling or into the flooring, like I talked about, of the business. Oftentimes these are brand leaks. When we just look under the hood, we can see it. And when we can identify what the leaks are, we can fix them. So these are 3 business problems that actually can be brand leaks and how you can fix them. Number 1. If you're hemorrhaging talented people, when I say hemorrhaging, you just got a lot of turnover happening and some of your best people have left. It's hard to keep good people around. Maybe you've even lost some talented people to the big 4. That stings. It stings when your people leave. especially when they're great. Stings emotionally, but it also it hurts your business. It hurts you operationally. You've got to get someone to replace them, especially if they're in a very strategic role where they're leading accounts or something like that. It can really stink. So what we've seen, and the data tells us that millennials and Gen Z, they don't just want a paycheck, they actually want a purpose. They want something to belong to. And they will leave bigger firms who offer this. They want a mission, they want a vision, they want a purpose. And this is a key piece of a brand strategy that I'll talk about in a little bit. And it's really just one of the things that we see especially young talent, are just piecing out, not because they don't want to work hard, but because they don't want to just belong to this system that treats them like cattle, doesn't value them, and gives them no vision for where they're headed. So culture leaks can be fixed and avoided at the strategic brand level because your culture is your brand internalized. Take a jacket, turn it inside out. There's your culture. Second thing, sales is struggling to close. Now, I'm not saying you're struggling with pipeline. That's different. I'm not saying you're having a hard time filling source pipeline, and that's probably a marketing problem. We can talk about that at another time. But I mean, you're getting people through the sales process. They're struggling to close. When sales is struggling to close, this can sometimes mean because they really don't know what to say. So paint a picture for you guys. I met with $100 million firm the other day who said that for the last few years, they get to the end of the sales cycle and the person will say, I had no idea you guys did this too. Why didn't you quote this? We would have bought that from you as well. Now, this isn't an isolated incident. It's a common thing. And they're going, how do the people that we're selling to that sometimes are in a year-long sales cycle don't know that we do these other things? Well, it's because your sales team don't know that you offer these other things. It's because your sales team don't know how to talk about it. And this and issues like it can get solved at the brand level when you have the sales enablement that's based off of a strategic brand narrative or strategic messaging that everybody's aligned around. We have sales scripts, right? Many of your businesses have these. A lot of businesses still don't. But that piece is also something that can be informed at the strategic brand level. And this can get solved sometimes at the brand level. In fact, we've seen it happen. Then the third thing, guess we'll find out. Marketing is mostly guessing. I understand, and we at Forrest understand that marketing is hard in tech right now. Talked about this a little bit at the beginning. It's hard to know what to do. It's hard to know how to measure. It's hard to know what to measure. It's hard to know where to put your dollars. It's hard to know where not to put your dollars. But marketing, regardless of how, because I hear you, it's hard, you guys. I don't want to downplay that. But you should never be guessing with your marketing. You should know exactly who you're targeting all the time. You should at least have a research-backed hypothesis for where you're going to go and where you're going to test some things. Now, sadly, most target persona research even is just a hunch that's either based off historicals or based off of one executive that's like, this is who we need to go after. But a brand strategy that has a strategic narrative for how to talk to target buyers across all the buying teams, across all the different stages of awareness, can make a really big impact in this. And what this can do is give your marketing team, if you've historically guessed, this can give your marketing team the ammo, the data, the messaging to power thousands of campaigns, hundreds of campaigns. This is the power of having this ironed out and clarified at the strategic brand level. And these aren't the only three things, but they are the most common ones that we see. So if you're following along right now, I want you to just think about some of the leaks that you're seeing. Maybe I didn't talk about the leaks that you're seeing. Maybe you don't see them in one of these three, but write down what the leaks are. Just write them. We're seeing this happen a lot right now. Just for yourself, just write it. There's other leaks that come up, and just starting to identify what some of those are. Maybe you don't even think that it's a brand leak. Maybe it's just a business leak. Maybe you're not sure. I'm not saying write down the leaks that you've identified to be a brand problem, but just write down the leaks that you're seeing, and maybe they're leaks that you've been tasked with solving. Now, what's the cost of doing all the guessing? Because really, to just continue guessing is just to continue to allow the leaks. And I don't want you to continue guessing, but I'm trying to really build a case for you guys to get this at the heart level, not just at your brain. So I want to show you the cost. So I know you may be saying to yourself, I don't really know if we can invest in our brand this year. again, we've got pipeline goals to hit. We need to hire some more BDRs. We got to increase our booked calls first. Then we'll invest in our brand later. I get it. I totally been there as a business owner, but it's all connected. It's not separate. And a strategic brand will always help you hit your marketing goals or help you hit some of those other goals. It should never, ever, and it will never make them harder. Not being strategic and guessing, that's actually where the cost is. So let's go to a party for a second. One of my favorite episodes of The Office. If you haven't seen this, Michael tells his girlfriend they're going to a party, tells her it's a costume party, and they get there and it's a party for Kelly, who's Indian, celebrating Diwali, and they're all wearing formal attire. And she walks in dressed like a cheerleader, and he's got this two-headed thing that he made, and he just rips it off, and he's like, "Well, sucks for you." It's hilarious. But I want you to imagine for a second that you've just been invited to a party, but the party's tonight. You have 1 hour to get ready. Now, let me ask you, this is the question. Would you guess on what to wear? Well, you wouldn't leave it up to Michael if he was your boyfriend to tell you, right? But would you guess? No. You would read the invitation. You'd flip it over. You'd see the details. You'd find out, is there a theme? You'd see if they have a dress code at least, or maybe try to figure that out. And then based off the data, you choose your wardrobe accordingly. And what most businesses, technology businesses especially, are doing is they've shown up to the party guessing with their wardrobe. And the reason why so many of these businesses blend in, fail to connect, and are vastly not memorable, it's not because they don't have a good product. It's not because you don't have a great team. It's not because you don't have experts that are probably smarter than some of the Big Four's experts. It's simply just because you're guessing on what to wear to the party and you're not being intentional. So what can it really cost us? So I stumbled upon an article a couple years back where a group of B2B researchers found that if a B2B brand is totally inconsistent in how it's showing up, it can be costing them about 23% of annual revenues. I wrote that one down. McKinsey found out that B2B companies with weak brands underperform strong ones by about 20%. And then a study by Millward Brown, I thought this was really interesting. So for those of us that have sales heavy organizations, right? A lot is dependent upon sales. A lot of investment goes towards the sales team. A study by Millward Brown showed that weak and unintentional brands achieve 3x less sales volume than strong and intentional brands. I thought that was really, really fascinating. See, 9 and 10-figure brands don't guess. The Big Four don't guess. There's a lot that they're great at a lot of things. They're not great at everything. They don't have sometimes the agility. Sometimes there's a lot of things that your businesses are way better than some of these larger firms at. Way better. You're way more human to humans. Sometimes you have way smarter people. Sometimes your offerings, the things that you sell, the solutions that you have, blow theirs out of the water. But if there's one thing that they don't do wrong, it's when it comes to guessing. They definitely don't guess. And if we love these brands, if people love these brands, really it's just because they planned it. They planned it that way. So let's talk about brand strategy a little bit. This is my definition. I've tweaked this over the years. I've done this for all kinds of different businesses. We do this at Forrest for tech companies. But a brand strategy is a research-backed hypothesis for how we will win the trust, attention, and affection of our customers. This is my definition. Again, there's other definitions out there that you'll find, but this is what I have found. It is not even necessarily a plan, like a plan, follow these steps. It's a research-backed hypothesis. It's data, it's research, it's insights for how, remember, we're going to do that matchmaking that we talked about, how we're going to connect our business, make it attractive to the ideal buyers that we have. Now, maybe you're here. If you are, I apologize. This is not meant to offend anybody. But Brandon, we already have a brand standards guide that no one ever looks at except the marketing team. You're telling me that we've had this all along? We've just been doing it wrong? Kind of, but not really. So a brand standards guide is not a brand strategy. If it were, many of you wouldn't be here probably trying to learn about this. It's a piece of it. But most of the time, what we see happen is a firm will invest in updating their brand standards guide, or they'll update it internally. Now what? Here it is, another PDF that will go in a folder and collect dust. See, that's not what a brand strategy is. It's a piece of it. So let me give you a little bit of a summary of kind of the anatomy of a brand strategy to help you understand this, okay? It's unique insights about the brand or your brand. It's unique insights about the customer, gaps that we talked about that are keeping you from each other, a plan to connect them so you can win the attention, the trust, and the affection. This is kind of a summary of what it is. So maybe you're here right now. What should my tech brand strategy include? There's lots out there on brand strategy these days. There's lots of really great brand strategists where they just teach on this and talk about it. I've been fascinated about this for a long time. It's contextual, right? So every sort of business, vertical, the industry that you're in, the market, it just depends. Some businesses don't need all the bells and whistles. If you're like a massive firm and you're global, you're going to need a little bit of a more robust strategy. But depending on how many employees you have, what your capabilities are, again, we need to peel back the drywall and look first. But I've narrowed it down to two things that I believe every technology business needs in their brand strategy. It's two chunks. So this will be really easy for you guys to remember. Now, again, if you ask the hundreds of brand strategists on LinkedIn, you'll get 100 different answers. The truth is that a brand strategy needs a few core pieces to hold your business steady on its journey to attracting customers, to standing out, and do all that stuff that we talked about. So I want to focus on this big blob of orange over here on the right. This is external brand DNA, and I'll show you guys what all these things are. But when we think about brand, these are the things where our brain go to that I talked about. Logo, tagline, website, the stuff that's on the external that the customers see. And for the most part, again, this is not an indictment. This is just because of the available knowledge that's out there on this. That's what we think of when we think of brand. But a brand strategy is taking those external things and making sure that they're informed by the internal DNA that's been informed by all that research and all that data. So this is basically it, giving you the keys to the kingdom here. An internal brand DNA needs to have these 7 things. Got to have a vision. Where's your business headed? Our vision at Forrest is we are trying to build a world where technology and people elevate humanity together. And our mission is to put humanity back in business for tech companies to do that. What's yours? Is it buried somewhere in a document? Does it live on the break room wall only? You need a vision. Mission, purpose. This is what young people want. And it might sound like fluff to you, but it's really, really serious to them to not just belong or not just show up to work for a company. They want to work somewhere where they feel like they're making a difference. And this is hard for tech companies to do. But this is why if you can figure out what is our real purpose and make it really clear to your team, amazing things happen. Values. What are your values? You probably have values. Do you uphold them? Are they places where people can see them? Do you talk about them? Let's go down to X factor, positioning. We call it the X factor. What's the thing that makes your firm different and valuable in a business way that your competitors don't have? Do you know what that is? It's really important. Brand script. So this is the strategic narrative arc, not just of you or about how your firm started. This is the strategic narrative arc that you're inviting your buyers into to encounter a transformation for themselves and their business. And then the voice and tone. Remember how we talked about your brand is the ultimate vehicle for establishing human connection? And we talked about that anthropomorphic thing. Well, one of the ways that you can achieve this and do this, and the big four do this, and those other large tech companies do this really well, probably one of the best is NetSuite, actually. So if you go look at any of their marketing, their voice and tone on purpose is strategically outlined to be really conversational, kind of fun, and very human because they're trying to overcome those barriers of confusion, et cetera. So do you have a voice and tone? And then persona script. So this is just who are the personas? Let's do some research on them and let's put together a plan in this brand strategy for how we're going to talk to them. This a lot of times for sales heavy organizations that don't have sales script, just outlining your persona script so that everybody can see and get to know the personas. It makes it easier to onboard sales team, makes it easier to onboard people in the marketing. They can read through that, they can learn. It's awesome. And then the second piece, all the things we're used to. Got to have a tagline or a brand promise. Doesn't have to be sexy. It can be clear, but it just has to be something that a promise that you make to your market, right? Ours is achieve breakthrough growth through human-centered brand and marketing. That's the promise. You got to have a logo. Your logo just needs to be a really good symbol that matches the attributes about your brand that you want people to experience. So if you want your brand, if you know that your brand attributes are supposed to be very trusting, professional, you know that your target audience is very risk averse. You don't want like a crazy weird logo that's like, it's got all kinds of swirls on it. You want something that fits that. You also want something, if you are innovative and modern and that's part of your brand and that's what you promise your market, well, your logo can't look old and outdated. Then corporate identity guide should follow all of those same things. Then there's stationery, all the stuff that you'll need to get out there, website, pitch deck, sales enablement. But this is basically the two things that make your brand strategy. And when you have these, they become a playbook that the whole business can follow. It's really fascinating how this happens. But let's look at a story. I see we're at 42 minutes here. I'm going to tell you guys a story about this. So we have some friends. They're called ITS. They're a ServiceNow elite partner, and they were going through some things in their business. This was a few years ago now. And they came to us with some of these leaks. Sales team didn't know how to articulate their value. Marketing was guessing, unclear on why they're different. And we know we can win more deals than we are. So what do we not start with? I'll tell you what we didn't start with, where a lot of people think, and when you self-diagnose, you think you should start with these things. We did not redesign their logo. We did not help them create a new identity. We didn't suggest new colors or fonts or tell them they need to make a new website, try a new marketing campaign, or buy any new swag. Instead, you got to diagnose before you prescribe. If you go to a doctor and they just look at you and say, take this, excuse me, that's malpractice. So find the gaps. You've got to start with the gaps. Gaps are the things that are keeping the brand leaks happening. They're keeping your business disconnected from your buyers in that emotional way. So we started by finding what those gaps are. Now, discovery always has to come before deliverables. You guys are kind of getting where I'm going with this, right? I've said this over and over again. And so these are kind of the buckets that need to take place before you really decide what you need to do. And this is kind of just the whole of discovery. But really, with ITS, we started just doing a brand and marketing audit, finding out, okay, where are some of these leaks? So we could have some clarity about what to prescribe for them. Then there's customer and employee feedback. Write this down, write the answer to this down too. When's the last time you sent a survey to your customers about how they've experienced your brand or your business? If you don't know the answer, it's probably a good indicator that you need to look at doing starting with a brand and marketing audit. Then there's market research, competitive analysis. Are there new competitors showing up? And then there's getting all your stakeholders together. And that's where you really start to have fun and pull out the insights that make your brand really memorable. So here was the diagnosis with our friends at ITS. Some of it, not all of it, because I can't share everything, obviously. But there was a team experience gap, how their team was experiencing the brand versus how they thought. They had a positioning gap. So all of their direct competitors were basically saying, we do it all. We do everything. We're the go-to for whatever you need. And they were saying essentially the same thing, but we found this gap, this position they could occupy. And then there was an articulation gap, how to talk about themselves in a way that not only attracted customers, but was also really, really clear. So here was the prescription: evolve the brand. They didn't need to do a full rebrand. Now, when you see some of the changes, you might think it was a full rebrand, but they didn't need to like revamp the whole thing. They just needed to clarify and evolve some things. So the first thing, a rediscovery of the values. This was also internal brand DNA. Where are they headed? What's that vision? What's that mission? What are those things? And then a messaging and a visual, just a positioning strategy. How are we going to attract the right buyers with how we look and how we show up and how we're saying what makes us different and what we do, all those things. And then the articulation strategy, excuse me, for them and for their team. How to talk about themselves in a way that attracts those customers and helps their teams work together. So I'm going to show you, we're going to go through a little before and after, because this project was, it was awesome. They're great people. They're really brilliant people. And we're really, really proud of what they were able to accomplish. So you could sum up their brand before, probably in one word, is just sort of confused. Again, no clear positioning, not really sure how to show up in the market. And they didn't know why their brand name was called ITS. We said, well, why are you called ITS? What does the I, the T, and the S stand for? They didn't know. They were using imagery that also some of their competitors were using, and they were way bigger, way bigger companies. And we just decided that that imagery, we revealed to them, like through the discovery, that that imagery was actually creating a disconnect and it was contributing to the confusion. So they went from misalignment to having a detailed strategy playbook, from guessing in silos to getting really strategic, created a brand strategy playbook for their whole team to use that clarified all these things. The next thing was they went from unclear to having a clarified team. So this internal brand language gave them identified the vision, the mission, the values, all of those deeper things that gave people the clarity about what they belong to, which that was really impactful for them. Some of the little things that you might think are little, but actually were really big. Again, they didn't know what the I, the T, and the S stood for. So we helped them come up with words that gave meaning to the ITS. IT means information technology, and they realized that one of their core words for how they wanted to position themselves was specialists instead of generalists. So we gave them some meaning with that. And then it all started to come to life. I'm not going to go through everything on here, but we helped them outline their voice and tone, how they're going to attract the customers the right way by sounding more human. And it all started to show up, right, and piece itself together in this new sort of updated and evolved brand identity. Now, this is where it gets really fun. It's happening. About 3 weeks after the launch, something really awesome happened. So a few weeks after this was all done, they were unveiling this new brand at their largest event of the year. And their new brand, everything that we had sort of outlined strategically, was about to inform everything: the brochures, the booth design, the backdrop, landing pages, hats, the swag, all the stuff, the deliverables that we talked about that need to come after discovery, right? So now that we had the strategic part done, all these things they're going to create now have something that they can be informed by. Now they have meaning. Now they're being created on purpose, not just based off of what's a trend or what looks cool or what's subjective. It's all being creative with that ideal buyer in mind to make themselves attractive. So here's the cool thing. On the first day of the event, where all the competing partners have their booths set up, it'll be super overwhelming. You've probably been to some of these events. Hundreds of booths, all trying to compete for the same people walking around. Sea of sameness. We're this, we do this, buy our thing, come and talk to us. On the first day, as the users who represent CTOs and CIOs from the largest enterprises on the planet are walking through the show floor, one of them sees the ITS booth from across the room. They told us this after the fact. Walks over, walks right up to the sales team and the practice leaders that are there. And they said this: "You're exactly what we've been looking for." This was the CIO of a 10-figure fitness and fashion brand. The pipeline value alone of that one conversation to their business was more than double what they paid to have all the work done for their brand. Just that one conversation. See, guys, it's not fluff. It's not just being creative, or it's not just like vague marketing. It's not subjective. It's not colors or just logos. This is the power of when you really try to get intentional and strategic with your B2B tech. And the other cool thing, God bless the big four. We love them, but it's one deal they didn't get. It's one really warm opportunity they didn't get. And this is how this can start to happen for you guys by choosing to be intentional, choosing to be strategic. So what's the plan? What, Brandon, what do we do? So here's a couple of steps that you guys can take right now to start doing this on your own, especially if you have the internal team and the strategic minds to do so. 1, audit and diagnose. What's really going on? Remember I told you to write down the gaps? Where are things breaking? Maybe you don't know where the gaps are. Well, if you do an audit and you look at all of your stuff, look at your brand, look at your marketing, you'll find them. Then prescribe a solution based off of what you diagnose. Prescribe one to your brand that fixes what's breaking and basically just bridges those gaps. Don't just have deliverables created. That comes later. And then 3, just create a strategy. You just need those 2 pieces that I talked about. Create something that your teams, marketing, sales, they can all stick to, and one that fits your business goals, not just what other people or competitors are doing. You need a strategy for your business, for your brand, to reach your customers, to make your business attractive to those buyers. That's what you need to do. Now, if you've stayed on till the end, it's t-shirt time. Lindsay, let's go ahead and kill